Hey, what's up, guys? Coming in today with my wrist issue, folks. Okay, so through my career in fitness and all those things, see a lot of wrist issues, and I can't help but think about one, those of you that may be having early onset of carpal tunnel, or you already have developed carpal tunnel, and/or like I like to refer to and have fun with it, but my keyboard jockeys out there. Okay, look, we're a product of our environment and where we spend most of our time. And unfortunately nowadays we can't really escape having to do work at the keyboard. And so if we know that, hey, I have to be in these positions and I have to do work because that's how I earn money and that's how I live my life. The bigger thing then is, how do I set up my environment to help improve my wrist function, okay? And then thinking back to that term carpal tunnel meaning the tunnel of your nerve channels. We don't want the tunnel to get kinked, right? And so if my wrist is flexed or my wrist is extended most of my times, and then I'm using my fingers to type in those positions and moving them lots of repetitions, eventually those tunnels shrink and get very stiff and tight. And if I don't do anything to combat those over the long term, eventually the tunnel really shrinks down and then it becomes set in that position, and then we start to have lots of wrist issues and dysfunction. And then lots of stiffness, pain, and burning sensations that come with that. So what I want to give you guys today is, number one, the first thing you got to do is, how do I change my environment that I'm in to help promote a better wrist function, okay? And so those of you sitting at your desk, what you want to think about too is, how am I setting up at my keyboard? Okay, and if this was my desk platform and I'm at my keyboard, is my keyboard lower than my hands, so my wrist is flexed in this position all the time and I'm doing this work? Or the other version is, if my keyboard sits higher and my wrists are extended while I'm doing this work, I'm putting a kink in the hose, so to speak, right? Like, this is a kink in the tunnel, and this is a kink in the tunnel, and I'm doing all this work from here. So one of the easiest fix is to set up your desk space and your workspace, prop it up or lower it so that your wrist can stay neutral in mid-range. And so one of the easier fix is, if, hey, I can't really change my desk, can't change my keyboard, well, can I use a prop? It could be as simple as a rolled up towel or anything you can think of to have my wrist on, so that when I'm executing my work, my wrist has support. And therefore I can learn how to start functioning in a neutral wrist position and working from there. Now, this is a concept that you can use for the rest of your life if you like it and it feels comfortable, or maybe one day your wrist gets stronger, you take this away and you start practicing good habits that way. But ultimately too, realize my wrist is connected through my elbow and then ultimately into my shoulder. So this is where posture comes into this as well. And so if I'm sitting at my desk and my shoulders are starting to round, I start to get short in this position, and then ultimately I start to lean on my wrist to create a better position so I can continue to function, okay? So if I immediately think, hey, if I can get my shoulders in a neutral position, this allows my wrist to start functioning naturally. And every time I start to creep into this shoulder forward position, just realize that the wrist is going to take the blow every time. And so this may require you throughout your day to practice, hey, reset your shoulders in a proper position and be able to work from there too, okay? Outside of that, simple desk drills that you could be using as well too. Like, throughout your day, you need to stop, take a break, and open the tunnels back up. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to keep the elbow pinned at the side, splaying your fingers. And the idea of these drills is to keep the splay between your fingers as long as possible. And there's a couple of drills you can do. One is just working on simple rotation while trying to keep my fingers as splayed as possible, never letting them come in, and just working back and forth and making sure that those tunnels are open. And I'm just very simple drill to open those up. I can do 5 to 10 of these on each wrist. And then the other piece would be working through that flexion extension. So once again, I keep it splayed, and then I work on dunking the wrist down while keeping fingers splayed. And then I also work on extending the wrist as well. And my goal is to always constantly keep fingers wide and spread like a web as I do these drills. Same thing, I can do 5 to 10 of these at a time. And you'll notice, you'll start to feel a little burning, a little tingling. We just don't want that feeling to exceed a 3 out of 10. So it shouldn't feel like it's work or very difficult. We want to be cautious in these areas to make sure that the wrists are still healthy and we're not overworking them, okay? Outside of that, you start setting up your workspace for a better position. You then start implementing daily drills, maybe 2 to 3 times a day. I stop and I work on opening my wrist back up and getting that function back. Lastly, if you're someone who's like, man, I've been experiencing chronic pain for a while in my wrist and I don't know what to do, we need to have some sort of exercise or something to use or practice to help get me back to normal. And one of the easiest things to do there is to use compression, okay? Because now you've been in a position for so long that the muscles have gotten stiff around those areas, and it almost makes it in a way to where like you can't even get back to normal without an aid. So what we'll do is, this is Rogue and Mobility WOD's Voodoo Floss. Guys, I can't stress enough, purchase this stuff. It's like 15 bucks for this, and this will serve you well for the rest of your life. What you would do is wrap your wrist up, and what we're gonna do here is start right at the joint, and then once we're wrapped, we just, with a starter, we're gonna try and put some good compression on this. So we're just gonna really be firm with our compression, and then we're gonna work up about halfway up the wrist. We're keeping our fingers splayed as we wrap. We're making sure there's no seams or gaps in between the wrap as well. And then we just keep working ourselves up, laying the band 50%, and then eventually I can come back down and keep wrapping this guy up. Eventually when I'm starting to run out of room, I feel pretty good compression in here right now. What I'm gonna do is just find a valve, pull the tape back, the Voodoo back, and then tuck that in. And then once I can get this figured out, boom. Now I have this really nice compression, and so I can go back to those same drills, and then I can use a little passive assistance, manual assistance. So I can splay the fingers, and then I can use this compression to really help stress these muscles and get them back to feeling like they're going through normal range of motion. If you're someone who's like, man, I feel like I've lost wrist function, this is gonna be your go-to. This is something, same thing. I can do this 2 to 3 times a day, but eventually I don't wanna just rely on this. I wanna start practicing better environmental habits and things like that, so I don't have to always use this band. I can work on rotating as well and moving the wrist. I could even just grab the floss itself and create rotation and movement through my wrist and working those muscles back and forth. I can create circles through here and really trying to push, and this is getting tough. I'm starting to burn up. Anything is good. You can go to any motion, whatever feels good. If you feel stress or stiffness or tightness, help push into those areas. And what we want to do is just make sure my coloration in my hand, it never looks like I get to a dead hand. If I start to look like my hand's purple or I'm cutting off circulation, I just want to pull this out, come off of this, unwrap my wrist, and then by the end of this, I'm getting a relief of good blood flow coming back into the wrist now, and immediately I can feel an immediate effect of more openness, more fluidity in my movement in my wrist, and so now you got a couple different tactics here to help with sitting at the desk, putting in long hours and long bouts of work at the desk. Set up your environment, have your daily drills where you're working on moving, and then ultimately, if I'm someone who already suffers from chronic wrist pain, try to find some sort of compression band that you can use and run yourself through those drills. And this is something, like I said, you can use daily as a nice way to counteract the effects of sitting at a desk. So give this a try. Let me know if you have any comments or things that you're going through personally that I can help you with. Feel free to direct message me, and take care of